Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hop Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content I will be covering today will be in the sport of football, inside the college football world. Today's bonus segment, I'll be sharing my college football second round predictions for the playoffs this week in college football. So we'll start off with the game that will take place tomorrow night, New Year's Eve, between the reigning defending college football champions and Ohio State Buckeyes taking on the Miami Hurricanes in the Goodyear Bowl. Now, these are the following game plans that I have for these respective teams to follow if they want to win the Goodyear Bowl and advance to the semifinals of the college football playoffs, starting off with the Miami Hurricanes. I think the Miami Hurricanes got to play mistake-free football, and that goes to point the finger at their quarterback, Carson Beck. Carson Beck has to play mistake-free football when the Miami Hurricanes are on the field offensively. And he's playing one hell of a defense. I think Ohio State is in the conversation for having one of, if not the best defense in the country, led by Matt Patricia, who has made the transition from the NFL to college football very well. And the thing about Carson Beck is he didn't have a stellar performance when they played a week or so ago against Texas A&M on the road. All Carson Beck had to do was not turn over the football. He had 103 passing yards and a passing touchdown. And if the defense holds up, if the Miami Hurricanes can find a way to hold up defensively, all Carson Beck has to do is do his job, not turn over the football, and they could possibly upset the defending champions. Last but not least, if you're the Miami Hurricanes, I think you got to blitz. You got to send the house, send the pressure many times if possible against Ohio State and their quarterback, Julian Sain. Because I've been watching Ohio State all year long. Yeah, there's an argument that they haven't looked that strong because they haven't played top tier competition. Some of that can be true, but you can't control who's on your schedule. I believe the only hole that this Ohio State team is on their offensive side of the ball is the offensive line. That's how stacked this team is. That's the only hole I can find is their offensive line. And the Miami Hurricanes defensive line is pretty good. They're one of the best defensive lines in the country. And they sacked Marcel Reed 7 times in the victory on the road a week or so ago against Texas A&M. So I think they should make the true redshirt freshman Julian Sain feel uncomfortable in his first playoff game because he's not used to this environment yet. So those are the game plans that I have for the Miami Hurricanes to follow. Now let's go with Ohio State. If you're Ohio State, the game plan should be simple offensive. Get your wide receivers the damn ball. Get Jeremiah Smith, one of the best wide receivers in the country, the ball. Get Carnell Tate, who could be one of the best wide receivers in the 2026 NFL draft, the ball. Like, get these wide receivers going with some screenplays, some intermediate routes. Slowly heat up the passing game so Julian Sain gets in a rhythm, gets comfortable passing the football so he can play mistake-free football as well, because he is inexperienced in this type of environment. The only time we've seen him in big-time games we've seen him in 3 different scenarios. The first game against Texas at home to start off the college football season. You could go to that big game on the road where they played Michigan. They won that game. But then the final game that we've seen him in, the Big Ten championship against Indiana, I still think he has a lot of football still left to play, and the experience is not underneath him all the way. So get the wide receivers going, slowly heat up the passing game so Julian Sain gets in a rhythm, doesn't feel the pressure close in on him, and make sure he's comfortable as this game goes on. And last but not least, create havoc defensively. I think Ohio State's got to create the turnovers, get the sacks, get the key third down stops to get their defense off the field, to put the offense in good field position. Now, Ohio State leads the league, or leads the country, in almost every defensive category. And there's talent here, stacked from top to bottom. They got top-tier talent. Caleb Downs, one of my favorite safeties to follow. I think he's not only the best safety heading into the NFL draft, but one of the best defensive players that the 2026 NFL draft will have. They have Arvell Reese at linebacker. They got Caden McDonald at the defensive tackle position. So they got talent. I think they should get the key third down stops, get the sacks, and win the turnover battle, and make Carson Beck feel uncomfortable in the pocket when he's throwing the football. They follow that, they have a good chance of getting back to the semifinals. With that being said, I'm going to go with Ohio State defeat Miami. I like Ohio State defeating Miami tomorrow night by a score of 24-21 on New Year's Eve. Now, I like this score of 24-21 in favor of Ohio State. Now, sports bettors, I do believe that the Ohio State 9.5 point spread is crazy because I think the game is going to be more competitive, more closer, and I think it's going to be a defensive battle between Ohio State and Miami. But I trust the playmakers that Ohio State has. I trust the playmakers, and I trust the coaching staff that the Ohio State has in this game. They have the championship experience. They were just there a year ago. Ryan Day knows what it's like to not only win round in and round out in the playoffs, but to win it all in college football. I like the wide receivers of Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate getting going. Like I said, I think the offensive script should be those two wide receivers getting going with some screen passes, intermediate routes to heat up the passing game for Julian Sain, who is a true redshirt freshman. It does have the inexperience at this type of level in this type of environment, but I think they'll be just fine. But another key is Ohio State's defense. I think they should create havoc on the defensive side of the ball, like I just said a few moments ago. I do believe that they will take care of this Miami Hurricanes offense. The Ohio State defense is one of, if not the best defense in the country. They lead the country in nearly every defensive category, and I think they'll get the key sacks when needed. I think they'll get the defensive stops, the key third down stops when needed to put their offense in good field position, and I think they could win the turnover battle. Now, Carson Beck for the Miami Hurricanes, he's going to have to do more than just have 103 passing yards and a passing touchdown if Miami's going to get past Ohio State here. I don't think he can have that big stellar game that some Miami Hurricane fans are praying for him to have. I think Ohio State's just a better football team. It's going to be a close competitive game, but I think due to the fact that they got the coaching experience, they know what it's like to win it all, the receivers getting going, Julian Sain getting comfortable as the game goes on, and I think Ohio State's defense is going to be the reason why they defeat the Miami Hurricanes in this game. So next game, not Christmas Day, New Year's Day at 12 Eastern, you'll have the Oregon Ducks take on Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. So these are the following game plans that I have for these teams to follow. Starting off with the Oregon Ducks, I think Oregon's got to start off offensively very quickly. They got to put the foot on the gas pedal and never look back. They have to set the tone offensively early in this game. If they don't, I think they'd be in a world of trouble. I think the Oregon offense should get going with the RPO, the passing game, and they got to establish the run. They can't do that against this Texas Tech defense that's really good. They are in trouble. If they play one-dimensional, trying to pass the football all game long, and they can't get the running game going, they're in principal's office trouble. I think the opening script, if you're Oregon, because if you follow football, if you play the game of football, everybody knows offensive scripts for the first 10 to 16 plays are scripted. You're going off of that script, and then you're going as the game goes on. So I think the first 10 to 16 plays that Oregon has, most of them got to be running plays to establish the running game, set the tone in the trenches, offensive line versus their defensive line, to get in a rhythm of how you want this game to go. Because I'm telling you, if it's one-dimensional, they can get the passing game going, but not the running game, can't get both going, they're in trouble. So definitely got to start off fast. And Dante Moore, let me see some. Dante Moore could be entering the 2026 NFL draft, and he could be one of the best quarterbacks entering the draft this year. But this is your statement game to prove why you could be one of the best quarterbacks heading into the draft. I think Dante Moore and Oregon's wide receivers got to take advantage of this Texas Tech passing defense and this secondary. Now, I'm about to say a lot of good things about Texas Tech's defense, but as they are undefeated team, they have not seen this offensive talent all year long. So I think early in this game, not only should you get the running game going, but you should try to exploit some matchups in the passing game and try to pick on the secondary. If you're Oregon, get Dante Moore going in a rhythm and get the ball to those wide receivers on the outside. Now, game plans for Texas Tech, all about defense here. Play great defensive football. Now, a few weeks ago, for those that are new to the podcast, I did say that Texas Tech was going to be one of my sleeper teams. And I did say, I'm on record for saying that Oregon, the winner of Oregon or JMU weeks ago, could be shaking in their boots when they play Texas Tech in the Orange Bowl. Now here we are, because this defense is elite. I think they have one of the best linebacking rooms in the country. Jacob Rodriguez and Ben Roberts. They're really good at stopping the run. I think they're the best team in the country at stopping the run. They actually are. Looking at the statistic, they are the best team in the country at stopping the run. And Oregon averages 217 rushing yards per game. So they got to stop the run. And last but not least for Texas Tech, create the turnovers. only have given up 20-plus yardage plays 33 times this season. Let me say this stat again. They've only given up 20-plus yardage play 33 times this season. And the amount of games they played, that's insane. And they lead the country in takeaways with 31 takeaways. They got to force Oregon's offense to make mistakes and Dante Moore feel uncomfortable in the pocket, put the pressure on him, try to sack him. And if the defense gets the stops, you put your offense in good field position to cash in on some points, whether it's 3 points, 6 points. That could go a long way for Texas Tech to win this game. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Texas Tech to defeat Oregon. Now, we got to have some sprinkle of magic in here for some, but I'm going with Texas Tech to defeat Oregon. I've had a feeling that this Texas Tech team could possibly be a threat for the college football playoffs. They were my sleeper team, and I'm standing by that. I think they get the victory against Oregon in the Orange Bowl, and this might shock a lot of people, but I think Texas Tech can stop the running game that Oregon might possess in this game. I just said it a few moments ago. I think Texas Tech is one of, if not the best team in the country at stopping the run. I believe they can be disruptive defensively. I think they can get the sacks, get the turnovers, get the key third down stops, and put their offense in good field position to cash in points. Whether it's 3 points, 6 points, it could go a long way for Texas Tech to defeat Oregon in this ball game. But I think the key is if they can stop the running game, like I just said, if Oregon has to be one-dimensional, they get the passing game going, but not the running game, they could be in principal's office trouble, because then you put more people in the box if you're Texas Tech. You start to close in on Dante Moore, put the pressure on him, trying to sack him, make him feel uncomfortable in the pocket. I just like this matchup. And I could be wrong, but I really think that Texas Tech will defeat Oregon in the Orange Bowl to get to the semifinals of the college football playoffs. Next game, you have the Indiana Hoosiers taking on Alabama in the Rose Bowl. These are the following game plans that I have for Indiana. Fernando Mendoza has to come to play. Now, he has to take control of this game. That's the only path to victory. Now, the weather could be bad out there in Pasadena and California, but he's got to take control of this game. Prove to everyone why you were the best damn quarterback in the country. Prove to everybody why you were the rightful Heisman Trophy winner, leading Indiana to an undefeated season, having the #1 seed in the college football playoffs. And show everyone why you should be the #1 overall pick, possibly to the Las Vegas Raiders this spring. Indiana's offense is averaging 41 points per game, over 470 total yards per game. They need to move the sticks on third downs, cash in on points, 3 points, 6 points, you name it. They need it every time I think they need it every time they touch the ball, they got to score. I think it's going to be one of them games for Indiana. Every time they touch the ball, you got to be in position to put up points. And Fernando Mendoza is going to have to lead the charge as their best offensive player. And last but not least, I think Indiana must impose their physicality. And what I mean by impose their physicality, they got to win the line of scrimmage on both ends of the ball. Offensive line, defensive line. They got to be able to win the battle at the line of scrimmage offensively to defeat blocks, control the game's tempo offensively. I think that's the direction Indiana's got to go in. Now here for Alabama, play to win. Now what I mean by play to win is, honestly, they should have lost against Oklahoma. Realistically, they really should have lost in the first round against Oklahoma. Look at the box score. They got outgained offensively in time of possession. Alabama just won the game in the margin by having 5 sacks, having that crucial pick 6 touchdown return in the second quarter on John Mateer. They got to play way better in this game than they did at Oklahoma against the best team in the country, Indiana. They just have to. They have to play to win, not just squeak by, but play to win in every category possible. I think that's the way you got to just punch the bullies in the mouth and take it from there. And I think Alabama's got to depend on their leadership. And what I mean by depend on their leadership, they got Kalen DeBoer. Now, Kalen DeBoer gets a lot of shit for being the head coach of Alabama, but realistically, guys, he's one of the best coaches in the country. Let's not forget what the job that he did at Washington, when he helped them get to the college football playoffs a few years ago, when he helped them defeat Texas in the semifinals. Yeah, they lost to Michigan in the championship game. That's the reason why he got this job in the first place. I know it was a lot of big shoes to fill in for Nick Saban when he got the job at Alabama. But let's give this man his credit. Kalen DeBoer is one of the best coaches in the country. And I think the leadership is going to be on full display in this game against Indiana. I think the leadership of the quarterback position is going to be on full display because Ty Simpson has something to prove. I said last week or a few weeks ago, you want to prove to everybody why you're one of the best quarterbacks heading into 2026 NFL draft, then do it. And he did it against Oklahoma, playing mistake-free football, over 230 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. So I think this leadership at the quarterback position with Ty Simpson and at the head coaching position in Kalen DeBoer makes this a scary matchup for Indiana heading into this Rose Bowl matchup. So with that being said, I'm going with the upset. I'm going with Alabama to defeat Indiana in the Rose Bowl to punch their ticket to the semifinals in the college football playoffs. Now, I'm not sure why I have this feeling that the game's going to come down to coaching at the head coaching position, and I think this game's going to come down to the quarterback battle. And if I'm going with that assumption, I'm going with Kalen DeBoer to lead me to victory. I'm going with Ty Simpson to lead me to victory over Fernando Mendoza. And I think the team that we seen a week or so ago against Oklahoma, they've learned a lot in Alabama. I think this team really believes they can win it all. Being down 17-0 early in the ball game against Oklahoma in the first round in hostile territory, they came back and only allowed 7 points in the second half. This team really believes they can win it all. And I'm not saying they can win it all, but I think they can get past the best team in the country here in Indiana. I think the defense is going to come alive. And they gained confidence as the game went on against Oklahoma. They had 5 sacks on John Mateer. And I think if they could put the pressure on Fernando Mendoza, I'm not asking him to get to 5 sacks, but if they could get something similar, 2 to 3 sacks, then we're talking 3 to 5 sacks, they got a good chance of winning this game. Putting the pressure on Fernando Mendoza, try to get to him, sack him, and force him to make mistakes. I think Alabama can capitalize on those mistakes, have success passing the football, running the football. They can't be one-dimensional. They got to do both. But I can see the upset happening. I trust Kalen DeBoer. I trust Ty Simpson. I just think this is going to be one of the upsets that we're going to see in the second round, and I'm going with Alabama to defeat the best team in the country, Indiana, in the Rose Bowl. And in the final game in the Sugar Bowl, we'll see a rematch here in the SEC between Georgia and Ole Miss. Now, these two teams played each other early on in the season where Georgia defeated Ole Miss by a score of 43-35. Now, Ole Miss was up by 9 the first game in the fourth quarter against Georgia. We know Georgia came back. Gunnar Stockton had one hell of a game, and the rest was history. Now, these are the following game plans that I have for these teams to follow if they want to win the Cotton Bowl and get to the semifinals. Starting off with Ole Miss, they got to depend on the running game. Kejuan Lacey, depend on the legs of their talented running back, and depend on the legs of Trinidad at the quarterback position. I think it could be the difference maker offensively for Ole Miss with what he could do in the RPO system with his arm and his legs. But I do believe you got to get the running game going with these two respective players. And offensively, Ole Miss has to score quickly. Now, this is going to be a hard game to win because weeks ago they had Lane Kiffin in half of the Ole Miss offensive coaching staff by their side. This time they don't. And that could be the downfall for Ole Miss. But regardless, you're here. You're in the second round. You got to go try to win it all. They got to start off fast offensively, put their foot on the gas pedal, never look back. And look, I think they've helped them. That helped them out a lot in the first game. They scored, 20 points or more. 20 points or more in the first half. Look, you're here. You got to do what you got to do. They got to start off fast offensively. Then I'm looking at Georgia. Game plans for Georgia. Lean on their quarterback, Gunnar Stockton. I think Gunnar Stockton has honestly matured a lot. Going all the way back to where he got thrown into the fire in the SEC championship game against Texas last year, man, he's grown. And Gunnar Stockton has matured as the season went on. In the first game against Ole Miss, he shined. He completed 84% of his passes with 4 passing touchdowns in the victory against Ole Miss. And last but not least, Georgia's got to lean on the defense. Lean on the defense. The Dogs' defense has been one of the best in the country. Now, this year, they're not as scary. Or you could say over the last 2 years, they have not been as scary as that undefeated team for the last 2 years. But, I'm not talking to you, Siri. But as we go on, and then they got to put the pressure on Trinidad. Contain the run. And they held Kejuan Lacey to 31 rushing yards the first game against Ole Miss. That's why they found a lot of success stopping the run. So those are game plans. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Georgia to defeat Ole Miss in the Cotton Bowl. Now, I do believe this could be a close game. I think it's going to be a more lower scoring game than it was the first time. But Ole Miss is going to suffer offensively, guys, in this game. I just talked about Georgia winning the first matchup by 8 points. This time around, Ole Miss does not have Lane Kiffin. They don't have Lane Kiffin, and half of the offensive staff is no longer with Ole Miss. They're over at Louisiana with LSU. So I think that could be the downfall of Ole Miss's offensive style as the game goes on, with the key adjustments that they could make on the offensive side of the ball. But for Georgia, I lean towards them because I think Gunnar Stockton's going to have one hell of a game. In the first game, he completed 84% of his passes, 4 passing touchdowns of the victory against Ole Miss. I think he's going to have a really good game again against this Ole Miss defense. And I think Georgia's defense is going to be dialed in. Now, they've had like a month or so to really game plan for this game. All along, they knew they were going to play Ole Miss instead of Tulane. So I think this Kirby Smart defense is going to be well prepared for this Ole Miss offense. And I think they're going to do a good job shutting down the running game. Last time these two teams played, Kewan Lacey had under 30 rushing yards. Or he had no more than 40 rushing yards. So it's going to be a really good defensive battle for Georgia against Ole Miss. I just don't like their chances, but I'm going with Georgia to defeat Ole Miss. But those are my college football playoff predictions. That is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off, and I'll see you guys on next week's episode.